Watching your child suffering from anxiety can be very painful for parents. You can feel so powerless, not knowing how to help your child feel safe, calm down, and overcome their anxiety struggles. Today, I want to empower parents to become strategic and therapeutic in their approach and realize every day how you can help empower your child with the knowledge, tools, and skills to fully overcome their anxiety and live freely. Welcome to Root Cause of Happiness. I'm Dr. Sarah Bryn Morrow, licensed psychologist, therapeutic yoga teacher, and optimal wellness educator. I teach the physiology of mental health and the skills to overcome suffering at the root cause. My intention is to empower others to become increasingly resilient by understanding the many pieces of the puzzle to deep healing. Please join me as we explore the root cause of happiness. I've been working in pediatric mental health for over 20 years, and anxiety disorders are by far the most common mental health struggle that children have. At least 10% of children have a diagnosed anxiety disorder, and a third of teenagers will experience at least a chapter of acute anxiety. Anxiety is the most common emotion that human beings struggle with because it is such an essential emotion to our safety and survival. But we can accidentally move into false alarm stress response where we suffer unnecessarily. To become more of an expert on anxiety in general, I would recommend you watch my previous lecture all about healing anxiety disorders. But this lecture is specifically for parents to help you be strategic in how you approach your child's anxiety and help them build the necessary coping skills and tools to overcome their anxiety over time. When we experience sense of threat, the brain's priority is to sound an alarm to trigger our fight-flight stress response and motivate us to very quickly react to keep ourselves safe. This is really helpful if there truly is danger in the environment in this moment, but it is often a false alarm triggered only through worried thoughts and ideas or images in the mind. However, when you're experiencing a false alarm, it feels totally real. And as the person going through a false alarm anxiety reaction, everything in your body is telling you, don't do that thing, avoid in any way possible, it is not safe. You might have experienced your child just digging his or her heels in deeply and getting very stuck and resistant, or maybe defiant or even violent, desperate to avoid the thing that their brain is perceiving as threatening. As a parent, it can be so overwhelming and painful to watch your child suffer and not knowing what to do to get your child to calm down and be able to function, to do the thing you need them to do. There are two excellent books I recommend to almost every parent who has a child with an anxiety disorder. One is by Dr. Bonnie Zucker, and it's called Anxiety-Free Kids. It also comes with a workbook for children with worksheets and activities to help them really tackle their anxiety strategically and kind of step-by-step work through her treatment manual. Another wonderful book is called Freeing Your Child from Anxiety by Dr. Tamar Chansky. Anytime I mention a book or a resource, I always put that in the show notes so that you can look that up and have the book title and author. Both those books are written by child psychologists who specialize in cognitive behavioral therapy for children who have anxiety disorders. They're both excellent reads, and they give you a little bit of different take on effective coping skills to help your child. So I really recommend those to help you become an expert on anxiety and really strategic in how you talk to your child and work with them at home to overcome their anxiety struggles. The very first thing you want to work on is educating your child about his or her fight-flight stress response. So this is covered in detail in one of my original videos called Master Your Stress Response. So you can go back and watch that to give you some of the highlights. But essentially, you want your child to know that the brain is looking out for any evidence of threat. Sometimes the brain gets confused just by a worried thought or scary image, and it wants to protect you, but it will send you into this fight, flight, stress reaction that doesn't feel good and isn't helpful if we're not really in danger. So that will include your heart beating fast, your stomach getting upset as digestion shuts down, muscles getting tense, restless, posture changing into this self-protective forward curve. We often are breathing mouth to chest fast and shallow, and we might feel hot and sweaty, cold and shaky. So the body is physiologically shifting energy towards being able to fight really strong or run really fast should we have to escape harm. So knowing how your physical stress response works and what the sensations are is a very helpful place to start. And then we want to help our child identify their unique experience of anxiety. Some of us might be very aware of our heart beating fast. Some of us don't notice that. A lot of kids have a lot of tummy upset when they're anxious. And so that might be their body sensation that is their best cue to alert them that they are dealing with anxiety. So whatever your child's unique experience is, help them connect the dots. When your stomach's feeling that way in the morning, it tends to be that you're worrying about going to school. Or when you get angry and kind of shut down and won't talk to me, it seems that you might be under the surface of that anger, worried or anxious about something you're not sure you want to have to do because it doesn't feel very safe to you. So try to explore the different ways the body might give these signals or these sensations that help us realize that we're anxious. From that awareness of the body, we want to notice our child's pattern of worried thought. So we call these automatic negative thoughts, which can be simplified to ants. And it's as if there's just a storm of ants marching through the brain, these intrusive, scary, upsetting thoughts and images that are tricking our brain into thinking we're in danger. So most of us will have our top 5 or 10 favorite things to worry about, or specific situations or stressors that tend to trigger our anxiety. So we want our child to learn to have what we call metacognition, the ability to feel distressed and kind of step aside and listen to the mind. What am I thinking about right now? This awareness of the thinking mind is a skill that we naturally get better at as we age, but we can teach our children to be aware of their thinking brain, and that will enhance their development and maturity in that area. It's really helpful when working with our children to actually write down those negative, worried thoughts and find a list to help them realize, wow, I think that a lot. I tend to worry about that all the time. And then we want to write down coping thoughts as an alternative. So strong, positive coping thoughts. That might be having optimism and self-confidence, kind of cheering yourself on the way you might your best friend. I can handle this. Even though I'm nervous, I know that in the end, I'll be okay. Even though this is hard for me, I believe in myself. I'll get through it. We might have acceptance. I don't like this, but I have to learn how to handle it. Like when they have to go to the dentist, to be able to say, I don't enjoy the dentist. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but I know that I have to find a way to handle that because taking care of my teeth is important. So acceptance, appreciation can be very helpful. So what can you be grateful for that helps your brain feel okay about having to go to this new place or do this challenging thing? So we can have a whole list of strong, positive self-talk and also bossing back anxiety. So kind of telling our brain, hey brain, stop that. It's not helpful to worry, and I'm not going to listen to those worried thoughts, and go away anxiety. It's very essential with young children especially that we help them externalize their anxiety. So instead of saying, you are anxious, we'd like to say, hey, you're dealing with anxiety. There's anxiety in your brain that's a false alarm that's tricking you. It's making you upset and causing you to hurt or miss out on things. And it's not helpful. It's a false alarm. It's almost like there's a bully in your brain yelling at you, you can't do that. You better not go do that thing. That's going to be bad if you do that. And that bully is wrong and tricking you and causing you to suffer unnecessarily. There's one book out there, and I can't remember for sure, it might be Tamar Chansky's book, but they identify anxiety as the worry bug. And sometimes I'll explain to children that your brain is amazing. It's like a supercomputer, and it does incredible things for you. But just like a computer can get a glitch or a computer virus, sometimes the brain gets confused and is misfiring. And so the worry bug is a sense that you've got a little bug up there, a little glitch in your brain right now that's tricking you into feeling scared when you don't need to. And if we identify it and give it a name, and you can even draw a silly picture of the worry bug, then we can fight back against the real bad guy here, which is this false alarm anxiety. I've had kids pick all kinds of silly names for their anxiety, and it's really helpful for them to give it a name and identity. So instead of fighting against mom or dad, they know to boss back and fight against the anxiety that's tricking them and hurting them. So we externalize the anxiety, give it a name. We help them become familiar with their body sensations that cue them when that worry bug is messing with them. And then we help them learn to notice how their brain worries, reject those anxiety thoughts, and instead use intentional coping thoughts. Behaviorally, when children are anxious, they tend to be desperate to avoid, and they will go to great lengths having a full-blown meltdown, shutting down, fighting, being defiant, sometimes even violent, in their desperation to not have to do something that their brain is perceiving as dangerous. So this is a flight stress response. When we are anxious, we anticipate danger into the future. We are desperate to avoid and protect ourselves from that sense of harm. As a parent, it can be just terrible to struggle to know what to do when your child is in a strong avoidance flight reaction. Sometimes we beg our kids, we sometimes bribe them with rewards or threaten them with punishment, or just physically overpower them to make them have to do the things that we know they need to do. These things tend to leave us feeling really bad afterwards as a parent. If you have found yourself trapped in those terrible moments, afterwards just be sure to repair with your child. Once they are calm and you are calm, come back to that really painful moment you endured together and acknowledge it. Tell them you are sorry for what you had to do, but there was a reason why. And identify the issue for the child as you were having false alarm anxiety, or that worry bug was tricking you. And I know how hard that is. I know it truly feels terrifying to you in those moments, but I, as your parent, have to make sure that we keep you healthy or safe or functioning. And what can we do better next time? What are some coping skills that you can practice and plan to use the next time you feel that way? And I, as your parent, will try really hard to support you in the best, most calm way that I can. So that is sometimes easier said than done. But it's good to know that when your child is in a strong anxiety reaction and you then become distressed, you can add fuel to their fire. While I would love for your child to be willing to do breath regulation, intentional breathing to calm down, they might fight you on that and refuse. So as a parent, then your best bet is to model intentional breathing for them. That will help keep you calm as you navigate that tough moment. And your child's body, your nervous system will just, on accident, be picking up on your intentional breathing. So as a parent, try to keep breathing in through your nose and emphasizing the exhale, slowing the breath out, breathing out with a sigh, and showing your child, I am trying to stay calm. And that will help them just accidentally also be more aware of their breathing. If you tell your child, hey, breathe nose to belly, slow the breath down, they might hyperventilate on purpose. And that can be really frustrating. But still, cue your child to notice how they're breathing, encourage them to breathe nose to belly, and model for them in your own self-regulation how to breathe. You also want to get low. So often we get so stressed, we're kind of intimidating our kids. We're bigger, we're louder. We might threaten punishment. And instead, we want to get low, use a calm tone of voice, and be a safety signal to our child. Now, you may have to continue to be the alpha parent. So we're always trying in parenting to be the loving alpha, calm, loving, comforting, but the strong grown-up in charge. And so you may have to say, I'm sorry, kiddo, I know you don't want to go to school today. I know you're having a lot of worried thoughts and you're nervous about school, but it's my responsibility to make sure that you go to school each day. So let's try to do all of our coping skills we've been working on and boss back that worry bug and prove to your brain that you are safe in school. And let's go face it together. We can do this. And so we want to try to stay low on the I level, so actually getting low down to our child. Give them a sympathetic, loving gaze, a gentle tone of voice, but enforce the behavior, the boundary that needs to be enforced. There might be situations that your child truly is struggling to function through. In that case, we want to work on graded exposures, slowly facing fears and desensitizing our child to that struggle, proving to the brain little by little over time that in fact approaching this situation is in fact safe. And so depending on the situation, we want to identify the end goal. Like we want our child to be able to go to school full time. And we want to identify the baby steps we can take to get there. So that can take some creativity and some patience, but an effective exposure means that we're pushing our edge of comfort a little bit once we have some coping skills to use, and that we're feeling some anxiety come on, but it's not overwhelming, and we stay in that challenge until the anxiety starts to come down. That gives the brain corrective learning. It helps the brain go, oh, I didn't think that was okay, but nothing bad happened. Maybe it was a waste of energy to go into an unnecessary flight stress response. So little by little, step by step, encourage your child to face a fear, boss back the worry bug, prove to their brain they can handle this, and then really celebrate their little successes along the way. It is sometimes helpful to have a reward program tied to those exposure challenges. So again, it will depend on the situation, but you might have little baby step goals with rewards. So as you achieve step 1 exposure, you're going to have a small reward. And then once the long-term goal is achieved, then maybe there's a bigger prize or celebration or a special night out or a treat of some kind to celebrate. So it is okay to have some rewards to reinforce their effort along the way. Most importantly, though, is to high-five them, give them a hug, tell them how proud you are of their bravery, their courage, facing a challenge, seeing their progress, even saying, gosh, I'm so impressed you did that today. You know, a couple months ago, there's no way you could have handled that because you would have had all this false alarm anxiety. And today you conquered anxiety. You showed the worry bug that you're the boss, that you can, in fact, handle that challenge. So we really want to be our child's biggest cheerleader, but also that alpha presence of authority saying we have to work on this. This is a goal we have to figure out. So we can balance this compassion and gentleness and patience with helping our child step by step have to work on overcoming their anxiety slowly over time. One thing that I see as a common issue in child anxiety disorders is parents who give excessive reassurance. This is very well intended. Of course, every parent wants to tell their kiddo, you're fine, it's going to be just fine, you're safe, you don't need to worry about this. But unfortunately, that reassurance is detrimental to your child's overall goal of overcoming their anxiety on their own and building their own resilience. One risk is that the child might really like the comforting attention, positive words, reassurance, and it can be accidentally reinforcing where they keep turning to you to have these feel-good messages, and they're not learning how to reassure themselves. The other factor can be that they become almost dependent on the parent as their source of safety or sense of resilience, and again are not building their own internal resources to be able to become empowered to handle their anxiety feelings independently. So as a parent, you want to really, in a difficult moment with your child when they're anxious, label it as anxiety. I'm so sorry that you're upset right now. I know it's really hard when you have this anxiety messing with you. Remember, that worry bug is tricking you. There's no evidence of danger. That feeling just came from some thoughts or images that were scary. But I know that you have coping skills and choices that will help you boss back the worry bug, prove your brain that you're safe, and I know you can handle this challenge in front of you. Let's work together so that you can be successful. So we want to help our child not lean on mom or dad for reassurance or sense of safety, also not fight against their parent as the bad guy, but label and identify anxiety as the issue that needs to be dealt with and pushed back, fighting against that false alarm and regaining their freedom to live and do the things they need to do. I would encourage you to go listen to my comprehensive lecture all about healing anxiety disorders. Nutrition is so important in mental health, and sadly, a lot of children are not eating a diet that has enough key nutrients to support their brain development and their neurotransmitter and hormone production. Children's diets, at least in the US, are often devoid of vegetables, and we have to teach our kids how to slowly learn how to eat more plant diversity, green vegetables, especially for magnesium. And where we can't get all those foods into our kiddo yet, we might want some nutritional supplementation to help. So there's certainly benefits from vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, magnesium. Epsom salt baths are really helpful for children who have anxiety or insomnia. So a little bit of a warm bath with magnesium through Epsom salt can be a calming way to get more magnesium for your kiddo. So I have a whole lecture on nutrients for mental health and a whole lecture on anxiety and sleep. And listening to those videos might be extra information to empower you to become strategic at addressing your child's anxiety. But do realize that food matters, and especially stable blood sugar. So you might keep some data for a little while. When my child has had this kind of food, how is their mood? How is their level of anxiety? Keep track of your child's symptoms and struggles tied to different foods or stressors or situations over time, seeing if you can identify any patterns. So blood sugar is really essential in mental health and brain function. And you might see that your child, if they have a lot of sugar in isolation from other foods, not paired with protein and fat, that they have this blood sugar spike followed by a crash. Of course, with teenagers, caffeine can become a concern. And so we just want to look at our child's food and nutritional habits and try to reduce sugar, reduce caffeine if your child does consume soda or coffee, and add in more and more healthy fats, proteins, and plant diversity. It can take time to get there, but have that be part of the long-term vision of getting your child moving towards optimal mental health and overcoming their anxiety struggles. Similarly, sleep and exercise are so important in managing anxiety and helping the body feel good so the brain can be calm. If your child is very sedentary and spending many hours on screens, that would be a place to start. Reduce their screen time to 1 to 2 hours a day and encourage them to have a set bedtime with at least probably 9 or 10 hours dedicated to sleeping. It could be that your child has anxiety, though, going to bed. In that case, we want to teach relaxation skills. I go over these in detail in the video on sleep, but some things to consider would be having quiet instrumental music playing in your child's bedroom, teaching them to do a body scan where they do progressive muscle relaxation, just visualizing each muscle group in the body, sort of calming and softening as a beautiful light kind of scans through the body. We can also teach our child to tune into their breath and hold awareness in their breath to help them stop the thinking brain and be able to fall asleep. So as you put hand on heart, hand on belly, you can track the breath and hold attention there easier, counting each exhale perhaps, trying to hold the mind steady on 10 breaths at a time, and then starting back over at 1. So that's just a way to anchor the mind and stay tuned into the breath. And probably the mind will wander off, and we teach our child to just come back to the breath. So breath awareness is a way to get the mind to quiet down. If your child has worried thoughts at bedtime, we want to give them strong, empowering coping thoughts. Again, to boss back that worry bug, be grateful for their home, their safety, their cozy bedroom, whatever we can help them feel comfortable in and grateful for to counter those safety worries that tend to occur at nighttime. Most children aren't getting quite enough exercise, and when we've been sedentary throughout the day, our muscles tend to be tense and the body can feel uncomfortable and restless. If the body is tense and restless, the brain can misinterpret that as something is wrong. Counter that to a day we get a lot of exercise and movement, and that evening we feel relaxed because the muscles are actually tired, so we don't have tension and restlessness. And so exercise for our kids can be very helpful at allowing them to kind of balance their body energetically. If the muscles are relaxed, then the mind will feel safe, the brain will feel safe, knowing that there's no physical indications of threat. That would be also true of posture. So if your child has a habit of being very hunched over, rounded shoulders, self-protective body posture, we want to help empower them to learn how to hold themselves in high-powered posture. And kind of the superhero image of like, hey, let's not act as though you're in threat and self-protecting. Let's be open through the heart, lift the chin, shoulders back and down. There's evidence and research showing how that changes biochemistry and actually lowers cortisol, our main stress hormone, and elevates testosterone, which gives us more sense of confidence and motivation. So we can really work with facial expression, body posture, how we're breathing, thoughts in the mind, behaviorally taking little baby steps towards proving to our brain that we're safe, doing little challenging activities, progressing and desensitizing to harder things over time. Overall, the most important thing as a parent is to learn about the fight-flight stress response, teach your child to be aware of what their body is doing when they're going through some stress reaction, learn that skill of noticing their automatic negative thoughts, make a list of intentional coping thoughts and start to rehearse that, actually read through their coping thoughts, once or twice a day. Try to anticipate when they might be facing a known anxiety trigger. So if it's presenting in school or something, we want to say, hey, you have a presentation coming up next week. Do you think anxiety might show up and mess with you and make you feel unsafe? Let's already draft a plan how you're going to handle that. So you might make a list of strong positive coping thoughts, rehearsing their presentation, doing their presentation in high power. Having a sense of humor is also helpful, so a little bit of silly role play can be a great way to help lighten the stress level. It's kind of like humor and laughing are counter to anxiety and worry. And so lightening the mood and having some humor and laughter between us can be very helpful in empowering our children to realize it's just anxiety. It can't hurt me. I've got this. I hope this gives you some helpful tools. Again, if you have a child who's really struggling, I would recommend those 2 books I mentioned by Zucker and Chansky. And also you might consider looking at a functional medicine lab assessment. So finding a practitioner that can actually do lab work and look at your child's unique biochemistry, that will help you know if there's nutritional deficiencies or food sensitivities, digestive health issues, systemic inflammation, blood sugar instability. So working with a functional medicine provider is also a really helpful step to take if you are really worried about the severity of your child's anxiety struggles. I'm going to have another couple lectures about OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder specifically, and how to parent that, and separation anxiety at nighttime, as that's a primary issue I see working with children who have anxiety struggles, is the separation anxiety at bedtime. So look for those videos coming out as well, and build those toolkits to become a strategic, therapeutic parent. Thank you for joining me at Root Cause of Happiness. If this information was useful to you, please share it with others seeking knowledge and tools for resilience. It is a meaningful contribution to the world when we become proactive in our healing journeys, by learning and growing, by increasing our awareness, by addressing the root cause of happiness.